Hello again, welcome back to That Money Compass with me, Daddy. I know you have seen the title of this video, but allow me to explain more about what we are going to talk about in this video. I do follow some financial agents, social media, especially when they are also some sort of influencers. Even though I have left the field, I do still follow just as to stay up to date on what's going on, especially around medical and insurance stuff. Now, being an agent once myself, I remember back then when during my time, there wasn't a lot of agents, be it financial or property agents, that do social media stuff. And on hindsight, when I first started, I can see now how my posts back then would actually have some sort of hidden agenda, so to speak, be it trying to get new prospects or trying to get people to consult me. And if you have followed me since back then, you would have noticed that I decided to change my so-called branding because I realized it wasn't very people-friendly in a sense. Like, it is more of gearing towards business instead of like buddy-buddy kind of thing. I hope you understand what I mean. Because in this field, one is supposed to be buddy-buddy and also to have big network, then you'll probably succeed. Like in a sense that being popular would help in terms of reach. So I basically had none of those because I was so used to being objective and logical, being where I came from, that some posts that I did would seem to have agenda behind it. So there seems to be a new financial agent in town, like in Singapore. I won't say which company she's from, but considering she's actually some sort of influencers before this, I would still leave the handle name here so you can check out yourself if you want to. So she posted this on her Instagram story, and after reading and understanding, I suddenly realized something was a bit off. So she basically posts this: had conversation about the Straits Times retirement article during her recent appointments, and two replies stood out to her. So basically, there's this Straits Times article about retirement which I didn't read at all, but I did saw the replies in the forums from some people and group chat as well. So she was basically talking about these two prospects or clients, I believe, as she mentioned that it was during her recent appointments. And there are two cases that stood out to her. So her first friend that was close to her 50s, so I believe it is in the late 40s, I guess. She did not say much initially, but when I ran numbers on what she might need for retirement, she immediately replied, okay, sorry, I don't really know how to read Chinese, but there's a translation there. Jia Mei, I am happy to fly out to heaven early. So Jia Mei is basically Sweet Sorrow's Chinese name, and basically the client was like, the prospect was like, I basically don't really care about the numbers whatsoever, as she just, she felt like she's already old and she doesn't really want to live long. Basically, that's what I interpreted from here. Now, it's very common that as a person that doing appointment with you, but the things that she mentioned that is her friend. So I guess this friend that doesn't say much initially could be doing this appointment, because she's a friend. Because if it's a really close friend, usually you start off talking quite a lot, regardless whether it's about the personal finance or not. So yeah, this is what I kind of interpreted. And then they burst out laughing. Okay, this could be a joke, could be not. It really depends. Because for me, I would usually ask, try to understand better why she doesn't want to live long, because there are people out there who want to live long. And then she mentioned how they would make another joke about how the prospect's relatives are in their 90s, which is really old, I have to say, and long live them, and healthy. So she is simply halfway through life. Okay, sad emoji. Cry emoji. So basically, this prospect, she is in the late 40s, and the people around her all kind of have a long life in a sense. Because if you don't know, in Singapore, there's some data that was being researched, and it was concluded that Singaporeans typically live kind of long. And it's kind of getting longer and longer, if I'm not wrong. And currently it stands at an average of about 85 years old, 86 years old. So 90 years old, if a person lives up to 90 years old, I would say that's pretty common. It's not very rare, I have to say. So, okay, that's basically the first case. So basically, she was meeting this prospect and they were talking about, I guess, retirement. That's why she mentioned about random numbers. I'll explain later what she meant by random numbers. And then basically she just burst out saying like, haha, she doesn't plan to live so long, so maybe that's why hence she maybe doesn't need so much money, I guess. Like, this is just based on my experience talking about this. I'll explain later why as well. And second thing is also about retirement. And second friend was in her 30s. So this is the age where usually people are very busy about life. They having their career, the career is going up, they probably worry about kids, they worry about family on top of that, they worry about expenses and stuff like that. So while she felt that $600,000 might not be enough for her lifestyle, okay, for clarification, this is in Singapore context, so the $600,000 here is 600,000 Singapore dollars, may not be enough for her lifestyle. Didn't mention whether it's for her family, it's just for herself maybe. And she prefers to live stress-free and focus on the next few years rather than thinking about long-term planning. Now, this is normal because considering Singapore is a pretty stressful city, I was to say, everybody is so focused on working and earning money, and cost of living is not exactly low as well. So living stress-free is a pretty common, I would say, goal that people like to have later on, and even now as well if possible. And then focus on the next few years rather than thinking about long-term planning. Now, coming from my perspective, because I do think a lot, I'm an overthinker. I used to be overthinker. I hope that I am less of an overthinker now. When you have a lot of things going on in your life, you tend to just want to worry about what's going to happen next rather than what's going to happen like 20 years down the road. Because one thing is that you don't even know what's going to happen. Things can change when the time is that long. So you would rather focus on, what's going to happen next, right? And then there is this paragraph that's highlighted in pink for a sentence, and then subsequently there's another paragraph that's highlighted in pink, which I assume is actually like the key points made by this Sweet Sorrow influencer agent. So basically it says the difference is time. So I would say she's talking about the age difference between these two friends. Her first friend is a bit behind because it's older, I guess. So she has to save a lot more to catch up because her money doesn't have as much time to grow. So as far as I see, the first, I know they talk about retirement, they ran numbers, which should be about money. And she's talking about, suddenly she talks about how she have to save a lot more because her time is shorter in order to reach whatever goal that she may have showed to her. And meanwhile, the second one, which a lot younger, has the luxury of time, which is true, and they can begin planning small amount today and still potentially hit the same target as the first friend. So basically, how I interpreted this is that assuming that these two people have the same amount of money as their goal, like for example, maybe $1 million to reach at certain age, same age, but one is older, the other one is younger, difference of about a decade. And for the older one to reach $1 million, naturally she may need to save more money because the runtime is shorter, logically speaking. And for the younger one, because she has more time to save up for $1 million, so that means she can save up lesser because she had like a longer time. So logically, in order to reach that same amount, the one with the shorter duration would need more money as compared to the one with a longer runway, right? So that's logically speaking. And TLDR is tough to save for multiple things at once. Okay, so this one I'm not really sure as well, because when she says save for multiple things at once, so I can just assume that maybe it's not just retirement income, maybe, because when we talk about retirement, the first thing that came to our mind usually is about money, like how much money will last us, because otherwise a person doesn't have enough money to retire, that person will just continue working until the last day. But we gotta enjoy life, so retirement usually is still a thing to talk about. But when she talks about saving for multiple things. Maybe she's talking about, I don't know, saving for traveling, buying a house, buying a car, buying a second house maybe. Because when someone has aged, pretty much, you don't tend to like, unless you are from rich people, like those people who are super rich, they may plan to buy more properties and stuff. But you have to remember that those assets are eventually going to be for their kids and the generation to come. So it's more of like legacy planning. But for normal people like us, like you and me, we probably tend to think about how to sustain ourselves, and hopefully we have enough money. And if we have more assets and money, maybe then we can think about second generation, third generation, or fourth maybe, whereby rich people tend to think about like their seventh generation, eighth generation, which is like longer than us, because they just have that much more assets and money. So, okay, it's tough to save for multiple things at once. I mean, there's a reason why we basically work, right, to have income. So I would say it's not really tough per se if, let's say, you have the discipline, as well as you are disciplined enough to really do like a division of your income in such a way that you would always have a little bit for your savings, have a little bit to grow your money, have a little bit for expenses, so you should be fine. The tough part here, I'm not sure where she's actually pointing to, but to me, the tough part is usually the self-discipline part. That's usually what happens to a lot of people. Then she continues, but the earlier you start thinking about working on retirement, the easier it becomes in the long run. Okay, so now this is something that's a bit funny to me as well, because just thinking about retirement doesn't really help. Working on retirement, okay, what does it mean by working on retirement? And then the easier it becomes in the long run. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Because planning for retirement is a process of trying to, in a sense, secure the day when you actually decided, okay, you're just going to retire, you're going to enjoy life. I just want to make sure that my coverage is enough for my health, because when you retire, unless you retire when you're young, health is usually something worth consider about. And money is the second thing. You want to make sure that you have money to live in this world, because in this world, everybody needs money to live, right? So that's the planning part. And you need to continuously revise this as you age, basically. And why I say so is because, like I said earlier, when you plan at the age of 30 and then you look at it again at the age of 40, there's like a 10 years gap. And 10 years is a pretty long time. It's considered long term. And things may change, things may happen. The situation around you may be different. Like maybe, for example, in a positive case, you suddenly striked a lottery ticket, you suddenly became rich. So the planning that you did at the age of 30 could be different as when you are doing it at 40 when you are already rich. So it's a continuous process. It's not more of like you're working on retirement and then it will become easier in the long run. Like, what is that even supposed to mean? Like, how is it become easier? Sorry, I'm sorry to say I may be pretty harsh, or maybe not, but considering the fact that you're trying to think from the customer's point of view, and it's just like, basically it's like this. I just don't know what to expect or what. Basically, that's the thing. Like, how is it easier? Like, planning means just planning. It's a continuous process. Maybe it's not like everyday kind of thing, but it's a regular process. That's what it's supposed to be. So I hope that kind of clarifies. But I may try to clarify how or why sometimes agents post some this kind of thing on the second one. All right. So, okay. Sorry, I kind of rambled a little bit too long over there. And now, okay, again, notice the highlighted text, and the text are basically typed in pink, I assume. That's a color. So naturally, I and you, like we are the readers, would think that those are the key points, right? Or the answers or the learning points from the agent, right? And from the earlier discussion, they probably are. But before we proceed, she didn't really mention in the context line, again, mention that she didn't mention what's this context other than reading the Straits Times article. But from the sharing of the experience, we can assume that they are basically talking about retiring with just 600,000 Singapore dollars, right? This is further strengthened by her second post, which I will show later. So with that in mind, she Basically, again, suddenly mentioned about time. The difference is time. Yes, we can see that one is in the 30s, the other one is close to 50s. So again, maybe in late 40s, a difference of a decade apart. So the confusion is this: she suddenly talked about how the younger you are, the more time you have to begin planning for retirement, right? And you can start with small amount. So I assume that this is about investing, because this statement is very common across financial consultants these days, especially with all the apps and platforms that do allow us to do so. And then she mentioned that the first friend is a bit behind, time is shorter for her, and then have to save up more to catch up. And then the second one, okay, for this first one, she basically, or rather we can assume that she's talking about growing her money, probably through investment again, because if saving up more, usually when consultants run this, like they have to save up more, usually we just assume that, okay, it's just impossible, especially when the older you get, unless you earn like $50,000 per month net, then maybe just by saving up, you're fine. And especially with all the inflation or whatsoever, yeah, it's just, they would just say that it's a little bit impossible to reach the $1 million mark or whatever. Usually we use usually they will use $1 million mark as the goal here, because in Singapore the cost of living is not cheap. So $1 million last time would be enough, but right now I think it should be more than that by now, considering inflation and stuff like that. So it should be more than $1 million. Now, talking about running numbers. When agents talk about retirement goal, usually they would do some sort of calculation. They will draw out this diagram, picture, and calculate how much you would need based on your desired retirement age, and hence, if you start now, how much you would need to fork out to start investing, and if not, how much you need to save up to reach this retirement goal, which usually is about money. So I believe I still have my drawings with my former prospects somewhere, but okay, never mind. If you're interested, then I'll show you another day if I manage to find them as well. Anyway, she did mention that how she ran the numbers. So I assume this is it. So there are a couple of things that stood out to me. Firstly, she definitely is running consultation here, be it a requested one or she's the one approaching. We are not sure here because she didn't mention it at all. Secondly, doesn't seem to be about investing at all, but the post is clearly about growing money, right? And in the financial consultant world, when talking about growing money, usually is about investing. And why is that so is because when we talk about growing money, that's where financial consultants can earn money. And how they earn money, it may be about ILPs or investment products by the insurance company. And this can give quite a lot of commissions. So now, disclaimer, big disclaimer, a lot of these are just calculated assumptions by just using my own experiences and her stories. And also these days there are third-party platforms that collaborate with agents like iFast, but they still can get commissions from it. But as far as I know, ILPs still fetch the bigger percentage of commissions because they directly come from the insurance company itself. So yeah, there was not much context about the consultations, and suddenly there's a jump to conclusion that we should start to plan our retirement early and start investing even with small amount can help. Another thing that's a little bit off here is that usually, this is just my own personal opinion, as an agent, if they like to jump to conclusion and then subsequently give you a solution that they think is right one and you feel a bit off, that usually is a red flag to me. And okay, now I don't deny this, like this story and stuff, but maybe because I've been an agent before, something doesn't feel exactly right, like I had explained earlier. I mean, retirement planning is more than just money. There is about health as well, which she mentioned as well earlier briefly, and in the second post later on. And then there is also legacy planning, which I touched on earlier as well, as an example. Whether your coverage is enough, what is the cost of medicals these days, how about your life, your career, your income, are they enough to support financially, and so on and so forth. So one thing about planning for a super long term is that things can change in life. So for her second case, whereby the prospect said that she just thought about the near term and not really the long term, we can't blame her as well, because if we can't predict what will happen in the next 2 years, why would we try to predict what may happen in the next 30 years, let alone 50 years, you know? And then this is basically her second post. So she basically did a poll about whether $600,000 is enough for retirement, and there are responses back, right? Then she started to share her view about this topic. So from here we can tell that, okay, the topic is definitely about having 600,000 is enough, whether it's enough for your retirement. I guess the article also decided to do such topic is probably because these days we all know that things are getting more expensive, and hence $1 million mark is like a common thing now for retirement, even in the US, I believe. And I believe also that not too long ago, some sort of US researcher or something mentioned that $1 million is no longer enough. And the same thing applies to Singapore context as well, considering all the situation that is going on for the past few years. So, okay, this is basically what she writes. So, thanks for sharing her views. It depends. Now, this is funny because usually for me, I did such posts before, and usually I'll give like a third option, like 50-50, like somewhere in the middle. But her question is more of like yes or no. So if those people that never reply probably is in between, I don't know. But her answer is it depends. So it's like, okay, yes or no, both answers are wrong. Like, okay, it's just a little bit funny to me. And okay, this is because each of us have our own ideal retirement lifestyle, financial needs, spending habits, and most importantly, health. This is probably speaking about how each person is unique, each person is different, your needs are different, cannot be the same. Medical costs will only continue to rise, that's true, and health insurance will get more expensive, that's correct as well, because it kind of goes along with the medical costs. And the last thing you want is to give up your insurance and face health issues later. Okay, so this is the part where a little bit off, because the thing is that why medical costs will continue to rise, because in Singapore context, that's just the case. And then he suddenly mentioned how last thing you want is to give up your insurance and face health issues later. So I assume that, okay, this is just based on my experience, because there are people who maybe find the insurance cost is too expensive, and then they may have to drop the insurance policies. And then that the consequences of that is that that person may face health issues which no longer is covered by the insurance policy, which is something you don't want, right? So that's probably the explanation here. So it's important to plan not just for enjoyable parts of the retirement, but also for unexpected expenses. All right, again, this is a little bit funny. All right, so let's talk from the first paragraph again. So the first paragraph is all right, but then she started talking about health, which is the second paragraph, and then proceed to say how it is important to plan unexpected expenses, which is the last paragraph, which I think it would be about health related matters as well, even though unexpected expenses can be a lot of things and not just health related. But in this case, it could be health, because in the previous paragraph, again, she talks about health related matters. And so now for this part, something is off part is this. The question is, okay, first thing first, the question is very broad. She basically asked about $600,000 is enough for your retirement. And then suddenly she just went on to talk about it depends, which is not part of the options. And then she talked about health. So here's the thing. When we talk about retirement and whether $600,000 is enough, as a human being, naturally we would probably think about money. That's the first thing that comes to our mind, because we want to know how after retire, whether we will have enough money to sustain us, right? Until our very last day. And for those of you who are not aware, medical costs and insurance costs are getting more expensive in Singapore. So far, I've not seen them going down. It just goes up. And insurance companies, being companies, they would raise the pricing as well. Hence, whatever she says, insurance costs going up as well. But here's the thing. Her posts may be a little bit jumping down to conclusion. But again, I know this may be for gearing opinions, raise some sort of anxiety so that you will start consulting. But if you are new and doesn't have anybody close you can talk to, you may find her, because now you know that she's a consultant, right? But always remember to digest whatever is mentioned, whatever is talked about. Don't just take whatever is said to heart directly. Sometimes agents can choose which clients they want, but clients too can choose which agent they want. So yeah, I just want to take this as an example of how agent influencers can sometimes post something that they may or may not have some sort of agenda. I may read too much into it, but I just base this on my own experiences from being both an agent and also a customer, especially now. I have heard thousands of stories, complaints. I also have had clients who switch agent to have me as their consultant instead. So yeah, to wrap this up, every single financial consultant still needs to eat. In order to eat, money is needed, and commissions are how they are going to be able to earn. Alright, so pay attention to what they say, pay attention to how they say and whether they align with you. I'm not saying you should dislike agents. You should still be kind-hearted and let them earn. If and only if you think they click with you, their service is proven to be good, they are legitimately kind, they are ready to fight for you, they will treat you equally just like how they treat their richer clients, and you actually are looking for an agent, and most importantly, they give advices that are tailored to your worries, you may go for it. So that's all for today's video. If I miss out anything, do leave your comment down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video as well. And if you do enjoy this video, do consider leaving a like. It will help this channel a lot. And thank you so much again for watching, especially up until this point. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you on next one. Bye bye.